Hey, everybody. I'm on vacation and I've been mostly off of the grid, and as you can see, Jesus Christ, getting a lot of sun, which is great. Um, but I wanted to jump on for a few minutes because Bernie Sanders won massively. He crushed it. He did everything that we've been saying he's going to do. He built that for real working class based coalition, and he crushed Nevada. And we also said, I believe the title of our last show was Establishment Freakout in 3, 2, 1. You could see it today. I don't watch a huge amount of cable, but I was actually just flipping in between MSNBC and CNN. It is interesting. MSNBC, complete, total, hilarious. James Carville, Chris Matthews led, just absolute insanity. I don't even have words for it. I mean, hysterical, sad, disturbing, bizarre, insane. Basically, somebody, I forget who, thanks everybody. Please, of course, hit with the super chats. I'm just going to riff a little bit here. I forget who said this, but MSNBC is basically an anti-Sanders super PAC. And there's a class component of what MSNBC represents in terms of their class interests, their corporate ownership, their agenda. And then there's just whole infrastructure of mediocrity in corporate pseudo-progressive politics and the Democratic, yes, establishment. I know that that's another thing that makes some folks whine. I'll get back to that in a second. And, what you're going to see really now is the real clarifying. We've said a lot of times, we've said, look, the center will break fascist, right? If they're given that clean, clear choice between socialism or barbarism, between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. And that's why first it's let's start to actually seed the idea and seriously talk about subverting democracy, stealing it in a brokered convention, even though Bernie's winning. And then today, it's kind of Chris Matthews in between making profoundly offensive and insane World War II comparisons, being like, I don't know, maybe I want Donald Trump. Maybe it's Donald Trump because, Bernie Sanders is so angry and he's always talking about Denmark. There's a lot of hating on CNN. Clearly the Bakari Sellers, as an example, is still in, Bernie hate fantasy world. But there does seem to be a lot more sort of acceptance of the fact that Bernie Sanders is on the way. I mean, look, like Nomiki Kant says, there's only one person at this point who is on their way to getting the nomination, whose scenario isn't predicated on some type of Rube Goldberg scenario and subverting the popular Democratic will. Look, Bernie won Iowa, he won New Hampshire. He's the first Democratic candidate to actually to win the first 3 states, as far as I understand. And of course, the margin of this win in Nevada, the incredible work of that grassroots, I'm sitting in the airport, taking a domestic flight where I'm visiting, and I was watching, we were watching people, videos of people caucusing for Bernie, and the basic ethics and decency and goodness and clarity of purpose and message is just absolutely unparalleled. I mean, it's inspiring, it's beautiful, it's the best America has to offer, it's the best the world has to offer. And it is, again, as we keep saying, it is the only campaign, the only place where there's real, actual grassroots energy, there's real, actual momentum. And so, of course, we all know the hatred, the resistance of people who, because of their class position, their ideology, are going to fight it. But the ground is there. The ground is there. The ground is there in a bad way because of how absolutely brutal material conditions have been for decades in this country, and the broader and broader spreading out of inequality, instability, lack of health care, underinsurance, and all sorts of systems of heightened exploitation and oppression. And then on the flip side, it's also there because a lot of human beings have really awesome instincts. They have a lot of empathy, they have a lot of compassion, they have a lot of care, and they actually want to do right by other people. And they don't want to get sold a whole bunch of nonsense and bullshit. And so you have a candidate like Bernie Sanders who comes along, who speaks to the reality of how bad things are, and then also to people's best nature. What actually drives solidarity? What actually drives community? What it actually looks like? Cornel West says that justice is love in public, and so I think it's just really inspiring. It's really amazing. I didn't want to get too far out ahead, but I definitely, along with a lot of other people, I suspected Nevada would be the first blowout win. I obviously thought, and of course he did win Iowa and New Hampshire. I thought Nevada, with this working class base, the real coalition of America, which is best represented obviously by Bernie Sanders, I thought this would be really what would be a significant win. And it was. So people are coming on camera. But the the next phases are obviously going on to South Carolina, going on to Super Tuesday. I think that there's no question. There's no question that that Bernie is the person who's poised to win here, and is winning, and is the one who will win. Right now, we need to be very, very adamant and very, very clear that we're not going to allow the Democratic Party to steal this election. We're not going to allow a private backroom deal to subvert the popular will. And not only aren't we going to allow that, we're actually going to be really clear that when Elizabeth Warren talks about that, or Mike Bloomberg, throws his money around for that, or MSNBC or CNN pundits fantasize about that, that not only are we not going to allow them to subvert democracy. I should be clear, this is not my house. This is definitely not my house. It's a friend's house. That we're not going to allow them to subvert democracy. We're going to win. We're going to prevail over them, whether they're Mike Bloomberg, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, pundits, Democratic Party elite, super delegates, anybody else trying to say that anybody besides the person who won, which is obviously going to be Bernie Sanders, should be the person coming out of the Democratic Convention. Not only are we, hey, look, Elizabeth Warren did not commit to supporting the person with the most votes at the debate. And since then, she's been launching really craven, embarrassing, and pathetic attacks on Sanders. And there's been spin coming out of that camp about some type of anti-democratic scenario in the summer. Not only are they not going to do that, but that when they engage in that kind of discourse, in that kind of rhetoric, that empowers Donald Trump. That empowers what will absolutely be an attempt of Republicans to suppress, to steal, to racially discriminate, and maybe, in fact, indeed, Bill Barr and Donald Trump simply not recognizing if they lose in November. That if the Democratic Party elite continue to feed that narrative, they are going to be the ones who have fed this really formal anti-democratic turn in the United States. Obviously, the Russia thing was embarrassing, was hilarious. Uh, I have not talked about Russia much. I think I'll revisit it. I maintain a critique of both sides, frankly, of some of the narrative. I think some people, look, I think clearly there was some connections that were documented. I think, and role. I think bots were not, if you think bots or Russian whatever is why Trump won, obviously you're fucking delusional. Or you're in the Democratic Party elite or corporate elite and you're looking for reasons outside of yourself and outside of the broader pathologies in American society and capitalism and everything else to describe why Trump won. That's really the main takeaway. And so, in that sense, I mean, obviously, folks like Greenwald and Taibbi were absolutely the most correct about the narrative consequences of the Russia stuff. But I just think that, it barely registered. I think normal people are burned out on it. And I think that, frankly, Bernie's just going to keep talking to people's real lived concerns and experience. There'll be a lot of tantruming. There'll be some, again, pushes towards anti-democracy. But we are going to fight that and win. It's going to be really hard to beat Donald Trump. And the whole of American oligarchy and anti-democratic forces are going to come up against us. I mean, this really is an election, starting with defeating, Mike Bloomberg and starting with defeating all of the ossified Democratic establishment. And then, of course, culminating in the barbarism and racism and depravity of Donald Trump and the Republicans. This is a fight about basic decency. It's a fight about healthcare. It's a fight about immigration. It's a fight about basic justice. And in fact, ironically, it is actually a fight about democracy and norms. We're the ones who respect democracy and norms, by the way. We're not the ones trying to, floating the idea of stealing a primary or the person with the most votes not getting the primary. But I think, the bottom line is that, sorry guys, I'm holding it with my arm here, so it's a little jumpy. I do apologize. But the bottom line is this is an amazing win. People should celebrate it. They should be thanking the incredible organizing in Nevada that the Sanders campaign did, that DSA did, that all sorts of volunteers did, including our very own, the great Ben Burgess did. So much credit, so much appreciation, so much love for the Sanders campaign, so much love for all of you, so much love for everybody really, really trying to undertake this incredible work and this vitally important work and hang in there for each other. I think people are actually starting to get a sense of really recreating some community through this, of not listening, to the calls for us to isolate each other or try to be engaged in constant purity politics and all sorts of other crap, but really trying to come together as complex, large-scale groups of human beings trying to take on a collective enterprise for justice, for goodness, and it's beautiful, it's inspiring, and onward. Bernie's gonna win. Bernie is gonna win the whole fucking thing. I mean, Pete Buttigieg is a scumbag, and Pete Buttigieg will be the agent. I mean, look, I think Pete Buttigieg will be the agent of the real, Warren too, of the sort of real hating, dead-end, anti-Bernie movement stuff. Bloomberg's there with the money, but Bloomberg, look, he can buy enough to subvert and fundamentally damage and illustrate that we're in a plutocracy, but he cannot buy himself a personality transplant up there on those debate stages. He is just radically off-putting and has an absolutely horrifying record by every single objective metric. So guys, be optimistic, keep fighting. If you can, go donate to Bernie right now. If you can, become a member of TMBS right now. Become a member of any good independent show, any good left-wing YouTube show or podcast. We are a major part of this infrastructure. Maybe cable might pretend to be slightly more fair. But again, it's not just that they hate Bernie as a personality, but this isn't like Trump. This isn't about manners. And of course, we fundamentally know that these folks don't care about kids in cages. They don't care about these issues. It's all about style and all of this. Bernie represents a different class interest, and that's going to be fundamentally antithetical to cable corporate news. It will change to some extent. It will have to as he continues to win. But the base and the energy of it is still going to be shows like this and independent media. So become a patron, support it if you can. It's incredibly important. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell. I appreciate all of you. Much love. Huge win. Huge win. They're not going to steal it. We're going to win the Democratic nomination, and we're going to beat Donald Trump and humiliate him in November. All right. Peace and love. Peace and love. Take care.